strike from Tanner Houck after letting up a leadoff single.
Well, hey, folks. Thanks for being with us here on a Sunday afternoon, and we welcome you to our audio portion of the coverage from McCoy Stadium. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we are not only live with the pictures. Now we'll bring you some commentary. I'm Josh Maurer, and happy that you could join us. It's a gorgeous Sunday here in Pawtucket. And we're going to watch Tanner Houck pitch. You just saw a 1-2-3 beginning of this from Dylan Covey. Johnny Pareda softly back to Houck, who thought about a play at second. Instead takes out number one over at first on the catcher Pareda. So I'm Josh Maurer. Thanks so much for tuning in here today, folks. And with both Jim Kane and Mike Antonellis getting the afternoon off, we're happy to have Tim Quintanamo, great member of Paw Sox Productions, on with me. And as we were getting to know Tim back in April, it was for his exquisite skill on the esports, the International E-League, which he was dominating a lot of the opponents with the virtual Paw Sox.
Dominating to a point, and then when it counted, the lights turned bright, and I just foiled Josh. I crumpled.
What happened?
I don't know. The lights were too bright in my room on my stream setup. A lot of crowd noise in the bedroom, maybe. The chat started getting to me, but we'll see. A clutch spot for Ockamy here with a runner on and one out.
Well, there's a lot of eyes on Tanner Houck these days. The overshift is on against the big left-handed hitter Ockamy. Nice pitch. Tanner Houck, fastballs and sliders mostly. That slider is his big-time out pitch. And with what's going on in the Boston Red Sox pitching staff, Tanner Houck, a guy who is considered one of the top prospects who's not gone up there yet. Yeah. People are wondering, when's it going to be?
Exactly. He has definitely plus stuff. You saw Chaim Bloom last night talking about Houck and Mata and how high of a ceiling they really have. And Houck was a guy who was a starter in Portland at the beginning of last year, worked deep into games, 6-7 innings, he maxed out. And then when he got called up to Pawtucket, he was working mostly out of the pen. They would use him as an opener for an inning or two, but definitely a versatile pitcher that they could have spot starts, they could have him come out of the pen, whatever they need of him, he's ready to go.
Swing and a miss on a fastball there from Tanner Houck. Takes care of Ockamy. So the fastball can be in the mid-90s. The slider, it moves in all sorts of different directions. It's a pitch that is as deceptive as just about any that you'll see. That's his bread and butter.
Absolutely. He can get that thing really sweeping across the zone. He can get some nasty late break on it, too, and bury it in the dirt. Righties breaking away from him. Lefties breaking into their back foot. He can throw it wherever he wants. He has great command of it, and that's what the Red Sox love about him so much.
Runner at second is Chatham. There are two outs, and Cesar Puello is in the batter's box. If you're new to our sim game webcasts, you'll know that there's really no different teams, just whoever happens to bat. That's off the glove of Marco Hernandez. It'll allow Chatham to score. Marco playing third base in this inning, and we're going to call that an E5 that allows an unearned run against Houck.
Tough play in the hole there between Marco Hernandez and Jeter Downs. Bounced off a glove and into no man's land with no left fielder.
Tough break for Tanner there. You agree with my official scoring decision on that?
Yeah, I would say so. Anytime a ball hits off leather and then it just kind of squirts into the outfield, it's E something.
Right. E5 on that. 2-out run. Juan Centeno to the plate. I was saying it's whoever happens to bat. They do have hitting groups, but really there are no teams. Everything is measured by half innings, and you got to have, if you're Billy McMillan, the manager, enough guys to be in the field and also enough guys to be able to bat. Generally, the hitting groups are about 4 or 5. There are about as many pitchers as there are position players here at this Red Sox alternate training site. Centeno, a catcher who was, for the first week of the season, up with the Boston Red Sox. Not on the active roster, but helping out as an extra catcher.
Yeah, good for Centeno to be getting some live ABs here at McCoy.
on the ground foul. You were talking about, Tim, the words that Chaim Bloom had about Tanner Houck and Brian Mata yesterday. In particular, when he spoke about Tanner Houck, he mentioned that they have to just keep refining, but that it's close. They want to make sure he's absolutely ready when they give him the call up to the big leagues for the first time.
Yeah, and he's really been impressive. He got drafted just in 2017 and has worked his way up. He was a first-round pick, and as we were mentioning earlier, that slider is something to write home about. It's just been dominating hitters in AA, AAA last year.
On the ground to second, and that ends that half inning. So Houck gives up what we'll deem an unearned run. Tanner Houck going up against Dylan Covey, who will go 4 innings here today. That's the schedule anyway. And then Houck would go 3 half innings. We'll also expect to see the hard-throwing relievers Domingo Tapia and Robinson Layer. Our Red Sox Taxi Squad action is presented by Bank of America. Thanks so much to our partners, and throughout this alternate training site, we do anticipate bringing you live coverage every day that these guys are out on the field. Josh Maurer, Tim Quidadamo, your broadcasters here today. Thanks for tuning in. Dan Fontaine up on our high home camera here in the press box. Joe Jacobs is overseeing the entire video operation. And we certainly hope you've had a great weekend. Great weather, huh, today, Tim? It's actually a little bit cooler. Temperatures in the low 80s and a little cloud cover keeping things nice.
Oh, yeah. That humidity finally broke from last week, which was just brutal to be out here.
Well, Dylan Covey, you saw without hearing us, a 1-2-3 first inning. We can tell you the 28-year-old was picked up just at the end of spring training 2.0 by the Red Sox, hoping to provide some starting pitching depth potentially. And Covey, I do think, Tim, with the struggles that most of that Boston starting staff has had thus far, Covey's importance grows here at the alternate training site, because if he can throw some good innings, you'd have to think he'd be in the mix again to be an option.
Yeah, and he's a guy who's seen a lot of innings at the major league level before. He's thrown 252 innings between the Chicago White Sox, and he appeared in a game through 2 innings for Boston earlier this year.
All of his big league time prior to 2020 was in the White Sox organization. Has 6 career major league wins. This is the second time that he's pitched here in one of the Taxi Squad sim games. Dylan Covey. Connor Wong is going to be the first man to hit against him. Defense has switched, as they've done in a lot of these half innings. Billy McMillan just mixing and matching. Bobby Dahlbeck over to third. Jeter Downs to short. C.J. Chatham is at second base. And Josh Ockamy remains at first.
Guys like Brock Holt coming around in the early 2010s, playing in the outfield, in the infield. You could put him at first, third, put him anywhere other than catching, really. And you see a lot of guys at the minor league level testing out other places. We saw Blake Swihart in Pawtucket try out the outfield. Su-Wei Lin has been playing center.
There's Chatham. He now, by trade, to your point, TQ, he's a shortstop. There we see him on the right side of the infield. A nice reaction catch there on a hard hit line drive.
Yeah, different angles. A lot of people think playing shortstop, playing second, what's the big difference? You're playing the middle infield, but the angles are flipped 90 degrees. So that ball coming off Wong's bat, a right-hander, it's tailing away towards the first baseline, towards C.J. Chatham, as opposed to if it was a ball to his left up the middle, it's not tailing as much. But a great play there by Chatham, who's been a stalwart defender his whole career.
Marco Hernandez swings and misses. We have seen Marco hit 4 home runs since we've been bringing you a live stream of these sim games. He has found a power stroke. He's pulling them. Every single one of his home runs has gone out to right field.
Yeah, and I was sitting down in the stands yesterday getting some video, and our coworker Alex Richardson, who has been doing TrackMan and doing some of the audio for us up here, was in that same area, and Marco looked up at him and he said, "Hey, where's my walk-up song been?" Which we've had a skeleton crew, so we hadn't really been playing walk-up songs for anybody. And before the sim game, Marco had something to say about that. He wanted his walk-up song played, and he said, I don't want it just for one at-bat, I want it for all three. And then that first at-bat against Brian Johnson, he gets an 0-2 curveball hanging over the middle, and he hit an absolute nuke out to right field.
You know, kind of right now, the extra infielder that Ron Renicke's team is carrying is Zue Lin. Lin was in the lineup last night against the Yankees. And I do think that if Marco keeps producing offensively in these sim games here, they're going to have to think about calling him up just for the offensive lift that he could potentially give. Yeah,
and he's been scorching hot. But, again, it kind of goes back to that versatility. Zue Lin, a guy who's been staying up there so far because he can play in the outfield if they need him, if they need to switch some guys around. Although the Red Sox do have a pretty deep outfield with Benintendi, Bradley, Pilar, and now Verdugo, all guys who are incredible defensively. Benintendi just needs to get going on the offensive side.
You know, and Marco's bugaboo at times throughout his career has been his defensive abilities in the infield. That's to center. Duran made a leaping, lunging catch moving backwards.
Yeah, that thing kind of kept sailing on him a little bit. Off the bat, it looked like it was going to be just a lazy line drive hit right to Duran, but that thing had some carry.
His speed out there can make up for some inopportune reads, I guess, initially. He can close and make up for it, and he did there. Marco, another hard hit ball. Covey has retired all 5 batters who have come up against him.
He's looking sharp today.
Yairo Munoz, another versatile guy. Right off of the catcher. That caught Pareda. Yairo goes down to a knee on his follow-through a lot of the times that he takes a swing. It's actually kind of fun to watch.
He's not taking any cheap hacks.
And they overshift him. 3 defenders on the left side of the infield. Even in a sim game, when you're facing your own team's hitters, the coaches here have employed the defensive shifts. Now, Yairo's probably getting used to it by now.
Oh, yeah. I noticed yesterday it was such a big deal in 2018 when Boston won the World Series. Those cards that the coaches gave, all defenders, so they would look at cards for every hitter. The infielders were looking at those cards, whether they had it in their hat or in their pocket, to see where they should play against their own teammates.
To some, it might be a little bit confusing. You see an outfielder take off his hat and start looking inside the bill, and so what's he looking at?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you're right, that's the information on the hitters and where they should be positioned. It's our second inning of today's sim game, scheduled for 4.5. Red Sox are playing the night game tonight, the national game in New York. Well, he beat the shift. How about that, TQ? That's what you do. He said, enough of you guys putting 3 guys on the left side against me. I'm just going to go hit a lazy ground ball to second. I get first base out of it.
Traveled about 15 feet in the air, but nobody home at where the second baseman's usually set up. Still looks like a scorching line drive in the book, though, if they are keeping a book.
I say this all the time. I don't know why more hitters don't do that to beat a shift. Well, if you do it, I know there is the counter argument that it takes away what you do best.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, we've seen Jackie Bradley this year got off to a red-hot start, and he's been using the left side of the infield a lot, just hitting hard ground balls to where the shortstop would be, and ends up finding a hole on that left side.
I mean, it's essentially they're giving you first base if you give yourself up by beating the shift.
Right, and it's about time people are going to start taking that into account. But at an age where launch angle and OPS are the biggest statistics people are looking at these days, it's tough for some people to sort of get past that and go, you know what, I'm just going to try to slap balls the other way and get my average a little bit higher.
Yeah, it would be hard to have envisioned, say, David Ortiz doing that.
Exactly, although he would lay a bunt down every, 2 or 3 years. I remember in Toronto almost legged out a double, I think, on just a bunt that he rolled down past third base and nobody was there.
John Andrioli in the box with 2 outs. In that game tonight, coming up at Yankee Stadium. It'll be the Red Sox sending an opener to the mound. It's Austin Bryce who gets the ball for the first inning. Yankees using the traditional starting pitcher with James Paxton. 7 o'clock, trying to avoid being swept. That Yankees team is really solid. Yeah. Really tough.
Top to bottom, that lineup is dangerous. There's no guy you want to face with anybody on. And Judge has just been hitting the snot out of the ball recently, too.
Dahlbeck goes the short way over to his buddy Chatham for the force. Another solid inning from Dylan Covey. The only base runner he's allowed was just a soft ground ball. So 2 half innings in the books for him. We'll see some more Tanner Houck. First, let's get a word from our friends at Bank of America.
We are entering a new chapter in our lives. Our confidence is shaken, cracked. We didn't ask for it, but we are rising to meet it. And how far we've come isn't even close to how far we can go. There's a crack in everything for a reason. How else can the light get in? Tomorrow starts today.
And again, a big thanks to the Bank of America folks for helping us provide you these pictures and sounds of Boston Red Sox Taxi Squad action from McCoy in Pawtucket. There's Tanner Houck getting ready to go back to work. And Chaim Bloom, as he answered the question about both Brian Mata and Houck yesterday, he did acknowledge the fact that Houck is the closer of the two to be ready for the major leagues at the moment.
Yeah, I think what we saw from Houck, especially once he got called up to AAA last year, although he was pitching out of the pen in pretty much only 1 inning, he did get the nod as an opener a couple of days, and he pitched 2 2/3 in that famous last game of the season last year with the Cole Sturgeon walk-off. Pitched 2 2/3, only let up 2 hits and 1 earned run, but looked phenomenal.
Having a meeting of the minds right along the third base foul line between Billy McMillan. Sean Haviland, one of the pitching instructors, is in there. Rich Gedman coming out of the dugout, hitting coach. Wonder what all that's about. There's Geddy. It's rare to see Rich without a hat on.
Yeah. Trying to get a nice dome tan.
Right. Sean Haviland, with whom Rich Gedman is now speaking. Haviland was a pitcher. In fact, he was the opening night pitcher for the Paw Sox as recently as 3 seasons ago. Harvard product, who's now gone into the coaching ranks, working as one of the pitching coordinators in the Red Sox system. Houck starting things off here in his second inning with a matchup against Bobby Dahlbeck.
Yeah, this is an exciting matchup. A wipeout slider versus raw power and Dahlbeck.
2-0. I've noticed that Bobby Dahlbeck, even in these sim games where you would think one would be very reluctant to take ball 4, Bobby has actually drawn more walks, I think, by far and away than any other player.
Yeah, that's what he's been working on a lot in the last couple of years, too, is his discipline. He said when he was even with Portland early last season, he would kind of chase balls that were in the zone but not really in his wheelhouse. So he's been keyholing a little bit more on balls that he can drive.
On the ground, and it's the shortstop. Takes care of him. There's Marco Hernandez makes the play.
Marco moving from third to short early on in this sim game.
You know, and we were talking about Marco and his defensive issues. The error that he made behind Houck last inning was the only run of the game thus far. They're getting guys reps at every spot that can help them.
Yep, in the last couple of days, the pitching has been great down here. A lot of offense from Marco Hernandez, but other than that, the bats have been pretty quiet, which is encouraging if you are the Boston Red Sox looking for guys.
So I was talking about the hitting groups that are being employed to face these pitchers. And I do wonder, at some point, you're seeing the same hitters over and over again.
Right.
So who does that advantage go to? Is it the pitchers getting the book on what the hitter's tendencies are, or is it vice versa? because there's so much familiarity between everybody here at this point, just 2 weeks into this training site.
Right. I would tend to think it kind of goes a little bit more towards the pitchers. But then again, these hitters are seeing what the pitchers are bringing to the table every single day. You start getting a little more familiar with the break of their pitches, the run, the speed. So it's tough to say, but pitching the last couple of days has been a lot better than it was, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago when we started this?
A couple of weeks in, yeah. Johnny Pareda is currently at bat. 1 out. There's the slider. It misses away.
Pareda thought about that.
And, used as a middle to late inning relief pitcher. He gets the strikeout on that pitch. And I think that you always want to keep the starting possibility alive as long as you possibly can if you're an organization for a guy like Tanner Houck.
Right, but I think he definitely has to develop a third pitch, whether it's a changeup or a two-seamer. I think he needs something that breaks into a right-handed hitter, and if he can get that two-seamer or changeup, whatever it may be, in that same tunnel as the slider, he'll be even harder to hit.
Now he faces Jarren Duran. 2 outs. I think you do worry about monotony sinking in for all these guys. You talked about how it's been 2 weeks of just coming here, working out, playing 3 or 4 innings every day, and then you go home back to the hotel that these guys are staying in, and rinse,
right.
Repeat.
Yep,
it's like Groundhog Day, right?
Exactly, and instructed to stay in their hotels, leave as little as possible, basically come in, get your work done, and then leave. But I know in one of those Zoom press conferences that we've been holding, Billy McMillan early on was talking about how a lot of these guys were itching to do more work, where we only had a certain amount of pitchers and a certain amount of position players here. But a lot of the guys, even throughout the quarantine, all throughout the country, they had been working on their own time, getting their time in cages, been throwing.
Duran in the air, right center field, carrying deep. Jarren Duran leaves the yard. Wow, and that goes almost to the back of the bleacher seats in right center. That is a blast for Jarren Duran off of Tanner Houck.
There's that power we have been talking about. Starting with his hands a little bit lower, he looks a lot more comfortable, and just crushed that one.
My word, he's not going to have a ball go much further than that ever.
No, he's not hitting cheap ones down here.
Second run in as many half innings off of Tanner Houck. That was not a cheap one either. That is so impressive. Jeter Downs now steps in.
Especially coming from a guy who has sort of been looked at as this contact hitter while he's been coming up through the system. He's been looked at as like a strong defender, contact hitter, leadoff kind of guy. To see this recent power surge, I said earlier, he's only hit 8 home runs in 800 professional at-bats. And he's left the yard, what, 3 times?
Yeah. At least 2 I've seen. You don't see a lot of balls go over those bleacher seats in right center field at McCoy.
No, that's pretty much been exclusively Josh Ockamy territory for the last couple of years.
Now that one did not go over all of them, but it went to the back. Jeter Downs now saying, what can I do for an encore? Connor Wong is the battery mate today for Tanner Houck. Pop towards first, Ockamy. Drifting right, what would have been about the foul line. Straddling it, made the catch. Inning over. Home run, though, by Duran off of Tanner Houck. We'll send Dylan Covey back to work here in this alternate training site sim game. Josh Maurer, Tim Quintadamo, our special guest broadcaster here today. TQ, you had a very interesting week. You want to talk about it all, your travels and what you had to do when you came back?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't disclose too much, but did have to travel down to Tampa for a little bit, just a weekend, doing a lot of video work with, I'll say, a prolific NFL talent, I think is all I can disclose right now. But it was a lot of fun, very closed-off environment, very protective of this prolific NFL talent, and came back and immediately had to get tested, had to fill out my travel information, register that with the state of Massachusetts, state of Rhode Island, go through all the proper protocols, got that negative test result back, and was finally allowed to come back into McCoy and start working again. And I'll also be tested as a Tier 3 individual at Fenway Park on the 5th, so on Wednesday, in a couple of days.
So to travel to Florida and come back, you have to take how many tests in total?
Take one before you leave, which I was lucky enough coincided with the one I had to take before coming in here when we started this taxi squad work. So there's one. And then one before I came back, just so I had the negative test to prove, hey, I went there, came back, I tested negative. And now this third one in a span of about 2 weeks is for the Boston Red Sox to, again, just their, like, I think we do it monthly as Tier 3 qualified individuals working at the stadium during this taxi squad.
You know, and I think it's interesting for people to hear your story just as a general state of affairs for what's going on these days when you try to move around from state to state. But also, it does paint a picture for the safety procedures that Major League Baseball has put in place, even at the alternate training sites. You're a Tier 3 employee. You
Right.
don't even have access to the clubhouses or to the playing surface.
Correct.
But you still have to be monthly tested just to be at the ballpark.
Exactly, yeah. The Boston Red Sox are doing an incredible job, I think, so far of making sure everyone's getting tested. They're giving us in and out times. So I'm being tested at Fenway between 12:40 p.m. and 1 p.m. on Wednesday. So making sure people aren't kind of gathering in a massive crowd before getting tested. Just a couple of people in at a time, staying socially distant, masks required. Even when we get the test, you just bring the mask down below your nose and keep it covering your mouth.
I think people would want to know, are you getting the saliva test or are you getting the swab up the nose test when you're being tested for the Boston Red Sox purposes?
So we've been getting an anterior nasal swab. So the posterior nasal swab is that one we've all seen that at those drive-thrus with the really thin Q-tip that you have to lean your head back and go really far in there. The anterior is just into the front part of the nose, basically where you can pick your nose.
It's not the one that they say tickles your brain.
No, it doesn't tickle your brain.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you tear up that much, at least.
Connor Wong against Dylan Covey. Covey has not given up a run over his first 2 simulated innings today. And so the players are getting those tests, to my knowledge, here every other day, I believe.
Right. I believe those are the spit tests, too. So that essentially tests, are you contagious to other people?
Isn't it crazy how in the last 5 or 6 months, everybody who's had to understand this whole pandemic has had to become an amateur epidemiologist?
It's unbelievable. All the research people, all the different tests that have come up just in the last couple of months, because originally I thought it was just that deep nasal swab, and now we have a spit test, we have a more shallow nasal swab, and these guys are being tested with such regularity too.
Yeah, as I said, I know at the major league level, and I as far as I know, it has continued at these alternate training sites as Wong flies out, that it's every other day that they are getting a test. And then if, as we've seen with the Marlins and the Cardinals recently, Phillies, etc., if circumstances warrant, then there can be daily intake testing.
Right.
C.J. Chatham
It's
coming to the plate.
Just a matter of getting everyone healthy, making sure everyone's staying healthy, and especially if they do have a positive test, making sure they isolate those individuals as quickly as possible before it spreads.
Strike one from Covey. Dylan Covey dealt with some shoulder issues last year. That was when he was a member of the Chicago White Sox. You mentioned it earlier, too. The one outing that he had for Boston right at the beginning of the season did not go very well, and so here he's been for the better part of a week here at the alternate training site. You keep throwing the ball like this, though, there is opportunity to go back up there and try to help.
That's right. It's good to see him doing so well today because injuries have sort of riddled his whole career. He had an oblique strain in 2017. Then we mentioned the shoulder inflammation last year and some shoulder just soreness. So it's good to see that he's pitching well today.
Red Sox made the announcement yesterday that Eduardo Rodriguez's season is done before it ever started. Chatham fouls it off. The issue that has popped up with his heart, the good news is it's treatable, and it sounds like they think the long-term prognosis for Erod is going to be just fine. But also Chaim Bloom was quick to note that the short season just doesn't allow for a timetable for Eddie to be healthy enough to go back and help the team this year.
Yeah, and it's really scary. I know a lot of people think like it's sort of just another flu strain, or if they're young, they think, yeah, I'll be fine, maybe I'm asymptomatic. But, I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez in his mid-20s having some heart complications, it's really terrifying to think of.
He admitted that when he was first told of his diagnosis that he was scared. And I can't imagine that you wouldn't be when you hear the word heart ailment.
Right, exactly.
Chatham swings and misses. Dylan Covey just cruising along. 2 down, and here comes Josh Ockamy. Covey has retired all but one batter he has faced thus far. Yeah, eight of the 9.
He's looking very, very sharp today. He's spotting his fastball. He's throwing his breaking stuff low, not leaving it hanging over the plate.
So the question, I think, naturally becomes, after you hear about Eduardo Rodriguez, how do you patch together a starting rotation if you're Ron Renicky and Dave Bush, the new pitching coach, and, of course, with the input of Chaim Bloom and his staff? How do you have enough guys? How do you make it work for the remaining 2 months of this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them start dipping into this alternate training team a little bit more, into this taxi squad. I mean, it's the first week of the season. We couldn't even get through a 5-man rotation before we start employing openers, just having relief guys sort of take a game out of that typical 5-man rotation. So I can see guys like Dylan Covey, like the Brian Johnsons of the world, kind of coming up and down and sort of swapping out with those openers if their arms start getting tired.
Well, they've used Evaldi, Martin Perez, and Ryan Weber as traditional starting pitchers. Weber has unfortunately struggled each time that he's gotten the baseball. Ockamy, that is a fair ball up the first base line. Ockamy is going to get extra bases. There's no right fielder, so it is up to the umpire to direct him to where he needs to stop, and then that'll be second base. Good job by Ockamy to pull that one just inside the bag.
Yeah, rolled over it a little bit, but had enough on it to get past the diving Dahlbeck at first.
And now it'll be Cesar Puello, former longtime New York Mets farmhand. Covey trying to go through 3 half innings without allowing a run here today. He is scheduled to throw 4 in total. And a good breaking ball to get ahead in the count. So as we mentioned earlier, tonight at the Bronx, it's going to be Austin Bryce used as an opener for the Red Sox. Another new name to the organization this year. I'm with you when you say that there are going to be guys who are pitching here at McCoy Stadium that'll be up there probably back and forth as they mix and match and just try to get enough arms to give them enough innings. Which was a big reason that I'm sure Chaim Bloom was asked specifically about Tanner Houck and Brian Mata yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before those guys see some major league innings later on in this season. We do have to remember we're still only a week into this major league season. I know the starting pitching has been discouraging to look at.
Marco Hernandez takes care of Pollo, and it is indeed another scoreless frame for Covey. Good stuff. Tanner Houck should go back to work for his third inning of work here today as we continue along. Sim game action from the Taxi Squad, presented by Bank of America. Seven o'clock tonight, the national game of the week. Boston and New York, as it so often is when those teams get together. Sunday Night Baseball. Interesting story coming out of New York today involving the Mets, not the Yankees. It's a statement from the Mets that just came out before game time. As of game time, Yoenis Cespedes has not reported to the ballpark today. He did not reach out to management with any explanation for his absence.
Wow.
Our attempts to contact him have been unsuccessful. That is a strange developing story involving the Mets, and the more off the field than on the field recently, Yoenis Cespedes. Certainly something to keep our eyes on.
Cespedes has always been a fun guy to watch in the field. Whether he's firing balls back into the infield after making a putout in the outfield underhand, looks like he's throwing it 90 miles an hour underhand, or just hitting laser beams all around the yard. But this is a very interesting development. I think safe to add to the rhetoric that baseball becomes a lot more interesting when Yoenis Cespedes is around.
And you certainly hope he's okay. I think first and foremost that his health would be the number one issue there. Speaking of health, Joey Votto today self-reported virus-like symptoms before the Cincinnati Reds game, and he has been put onto the COVID-19 injured list. He did not test positive for the virus, but because of the symptoms, the Reds have placed him on that list before a doubleheader today against the Detroit Tigers. It's another example of what Major League Baseball has termed abundance of caution that they're going to have to use from now on. Even without a positive test, Joey Votto says he feels sick, and they're just going to scratch him.
Yeah, and good on Votto for him to self-diagnose. He's saying, hey, I'm having these symptoms, and especially after the news the last couple of days around Major League Baseball with the Marlins and Cardinals. The league's under a microscope right now when it comes to COVID-19 protocols, especially as we see the NBA in their bubble city in Orlando coming back, the NHL in their bubble cities coming back as well, and so far 0 positive test results for each of those leagues. The eyes are on Major League Baseball with how they're taking care of this, so good for Votto to come out and tell the team, hey, I'm starting to experience symptoms, I'm not going to make it in today, and for the Reds to honor that.
Chris Bryant of the Cubs, their slugging third baseman, he is out with a gastrointestinal-related illness. He also tested negative for coronavirus. We're watching health. I feel like we're doctors. Marco Hernandez against Tanner Houck. Houck gave up an unearned run his first inning that he worked today. Then gave up a long home run to Jarren Duran in his second inning of work. Hernandez, who lined out first time he batted this afternoon, fouls one off.
A little bit of a different shift right here, Josh. We're just playing with no third baseman right now. Shifted slightly towards the second base side for Marco anyway. But Billy McMillan's the closest thing that we have to a third baseman here.
Maybe Billy could put a glove on out there. Try to help out a little bit, because you're right. We're down a defender here in this half inning. That's one of the things that we were talking about earlier. Billy's had to mix and match. You got to make sure you have enough guys to both hit and defend. There's a newcomer to this alternate training site, at least expected to be in the next day or two, and that is the Red Sox catcher who was outrighted, Jonathan Lucroy. That's a foul ball. Lucroy was not claimed by any other teams after he was designated for assignment. So he stays in the Red Sox organization and is anticipated to come here.
Lucroy, a veteran guy, always been a leader in the clubhouse, so it'll be good to get him around guys like Connor Wong here in Pawtucket.
That's a good point. They got some pretty good veteran catchers here at this training site.
Yep, Pareda and Centeno.
Connor Wong is currently the catcher working with Houck. Hit him on the foot. Ouch. Ooh, Marco frustrated, and he's deciding I'm not even going to run the bases, I think.
Yeah, that sounded like it hurt. Maybe got him off the heel. He was trying to get out of the way of that one, but just couldn't do it. Looked like a slider that kept running in on him.
Hernandez has made a crouch over in the what would normally be the visitors' dugout area. Now he is back into a standing, now walking position. And on his way to try to run at first base, so that's good news. And we'll have Duran versus Houck again coming up as the matchup. Tanner Houck's still just 24 years old. In fact, it was a month ago, just over that he turned 24. So relatively a young guy, even though he was a college pitcher. Duran took him deep last inning, and I'm sure he's got that at the very front of his mind right now. He wants a little bit of revenge. As you would hope for a first-round pick, Tanner has moved pretty rapidly up the chain here in the Red Sox organization. First year he pitched short season A-ball, second year high A, and then in his third year last season, double A to triple A. So he is right on the cusp, as they say, of the big leagues.
And he actually made a pretty significant drop in his ERA once he got called up to AAA, working out of the bullpen. As we were saying earlier, Josh, with just 2 pitches, he's been very effective out of the bullpen, more so than when he was starting in Portland. In Portland, started 15 games out of 17 he appeared in with a 4.25 ERA. And in 16 games in Pawtucket, 14 of which he was a reliever, a 3.24 ERA, which is real nice coming out of the pen.
He had never been a reliever. There's a good fastball. 3-1 the count on Duran. You look at when he came to Pawtucket, and the Red Sox at the time were thinking maybe we need some help in the middle relief role in the big leagues. So they moved him, and I remember talking to Tanner. He said, I just have never had this role in my life. Another broken bat for Duran. 4, 6, 3. How about it? And Jeter Downs turned that with a bare hand from shortstop, catching the ball and flipping the relay over to first in one motion.
Just a pretty double play. Chatham starting it on a weak ground ball. They didn't have a lot of time with Duran moving down the line. But a Chatham, Downs, middle infield, they're going to turn a pretty double play.
Curious to hear what Bruce Crabb would have to say about that barehanded catch and turn. You know, the infield guru, he is in charge of the defensive training for these guys, especially the infielders. And I know you'd rather use your glove, but that did save him a little bit of time.
Yeah, and they only got Duran by about a half step there. I think when it comes to a play like that, you have Duran in the left side. You know he has speed anyway. I think as long as you make that play, Krabby will be happy.
It was really nifty to watch. Akami batting against Houck. Tanner trying to get a scoreless inning, even with only 3 infielders defending behind him. And at the moment, all 3 of those infielders are in a shift on the right side. So literally there's no one on the left side of the diamond. No shortstop, third baseman, or left fielder. If Josh hits the ball the opposite way,
he'll be running for a while.
If they didn't stop him, he could score. Now, he's used to seeing these shifts. The entire International League did it to him last year.
Yep.
Just about every time he batted.
Yeah, it didn't seem to bother him too much, though.
Outside, says Bruce Crabb on the fastball there from Tanner Houck.
It also helps when you're able to hit 25 balls over everybody, regardless of whether or not they're shifting you, which Acme did with 25 home runs last year.
Yeah, TQ, that's one way to beat a shift. You just hit it over the fence.
Yeah. Put it in those right center bleachers that Duran paid a visit to earlier.
Down and in, ball 4. 4-pitch walk to Acme. In this inning, Houck going for a third frame and perhaps being stretched out more than he has been in a long time, maybe losing a little bit of steam. You've seen him hit a batter and now walk a batter.
Yeah, it looked like he was going almost exclusively off speed to Acme there. And he was yanking a lot of those sliders, missing down and in, which we saw he was missing to Marco Hernandez in that same spot earlier when he hit him. Marco with his second attempt this inning against Tanner Houck right here.
And now Marco's going to have to bat again. So this hitting group has been decreased. Lined into right center field, and that's going to fall for Hernandez. First to third goes Acme, who was in motion with 2 outs. So Marco Hernandez just keeps doing it with the bat.
Yep. That pitch a little bit outside too, and he still pulled it, was able to drop the barrel on it enough to get it into the outfield, and placed it well in right center, a little bit too far away from Puello to make a play.
Now Jaron Duran bats again for the second time in the inning. So this batting group has dwindled to just 4 men. Usually it's been 5 or 6 in these sim games where they're able to get a little bit more of a rotation going in the half innings.
Maybe we'll see a ghost runner soon, like it's a backyard wiffle ball game.
You know, we don't have any knowledge of what's going on, but I imagine that as much as we've seen these coaches huddling together today between innings and trying to talk, maybe there's something going on. Guys who have had to leave or be scratched or just not available for whatever reason, we certainly don't want to speculate. But these pitchers need to get their work in, and so it's up to Billy McMillan and the rest of the coaching staff to figure out how they can get enough guys out there to get these pitchers live work.
Yeah, and I'm sure guys like Jaron Duran aren't going to shy away from a live at bat right now.
He's now facing Houck for the 3rd time in 2 innings. Runners on the corners and 2 outs. And Houck is looking for one more good pitch to end his afternoon. In towards left center field, and a long run, Andrioli. That's in for a hit. Jaron Duran drives in his 2nd run in as many innings. And that's going to be all for Houck. Limit reached. Unfortunately, a bit of a sour taste in his mouth from the way that it ended, but early on, Tanner Houck, especially in his 1st inning, I thought he looked pretty sharp.
Yeah, it definitely looked good. He was snapping that slider and spotting his fastball a lot better in that 1st inning, but as his outing progressed, he started to lose a little bit of control.
But that's certainly the first time since he's been here that he's been asked to go for 3 innings, so it's understandable. I like this graphic you've got up here, TQ.
Yeah, Joe Jacobs, my colleague, and I added a few more graphics to start playing with a little bit. And you were saying before the broadcast started that it's very difficult to do the broadcast and direct the broadcast at the same time. And I was struggling early on. We were missing plays. I wasn't getting to Dan Fontaine's high home camera to follow the ball. And I would like everyone watching at home to know that I sincerely apologize for the beginning of this broadcast. Right. But I think I'm hitting my stride now. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable.
I can empathize. I've been doing it a couple of times this week already. You got to be on the mic and at the controls.
Yeah. I'm trying to pat my head and rub my belly at the same time, and I'm having some trouble.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in here. This broadcast of Red Sox Taxi Squad Baseball presented by Bank of America.
Dan Fontaine down the hall is giving me the so-so sign with his hand, telling me I'm doing okay, but definitely room for improvement.
Well, you're no Mike Antonellis.
Oh, absolutely not.
Jim Kane might have something to say about that as well. Jim and Mike will be back tomorrow as we bring you Monday action. Fourth inning of work here for Dylan Covey. He has been sharp, to say the least. Yairo Munoz, first man up against him, and then it's going to be Connor Wong. So this group that is out there defending behind Covey, we are back to the normal 8 defenders instead of the 7 that we saw behind Houck last half inning.
Yep, outfielders shading opposite field. By shading opposite field, I should mention just a center fielder and right fielder, not really shaded one way or the other. But the infield with a slight pull shift.
Lined into the vacant left field. That ball carrying well and off the warning track. Bruce Crabb puts up 2 fingers from his umpire's perch, and that's going to indicate a leadoff double for Yairo Munoz.
I don't think anyone's arguing with that double call. That ball got to the bottom of the fence real quick.
Nice day for Munoz with the bat. You know, I was going to just point out, TQ, it was a big overshift that they had on him first time he batted, and he beat it by going the opposite way.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's any correlation to this or not, but they took off the overshift this time.
Yeah, they played him a little more straight up in the infield. Oh, and he's taken third without a throw.
Yeah. We apologize again for the audio difficulties. That ball chopped by Andrioli to Dahlbeck. Gets the out. 5-3 on that one, and so there is the second out here for Dylan Covey. I'm not quite sure how long we were gone.
I'm not either, but Dan Fontaine had the stream out on his phone and was waving us off for, I think, hopefully just a couple of seconds, but I think the real problem here is we need a new cable, because it was just a matter of wiggling it around, getting it to situate in the right place for it to come back on.
We'll get that all squared away, we promise. Thanks for bearing with us today. So the first run allowed by Dylan Covey was set up by Yairo Munoz. A double, a steal of third, and then he scores on a sacrifice fly. And now Jeter Downs takes a ball.
Munoz wasn't on the bases for very long. He was first pitch swinging on that double, stole second the next pitch, and then scored on a sacrifice fly the pitch after that. So it's 3 pitches is all it took for him to circle his way around.
Strike called here. I was going to bring up Dylan Covey being stretched out to a 4th inning. In his big league career, 45 of his 64 appearances have been as a starter. This is his role generally. And this very well could be, if he gets Jeter downs, the final batter that he faces in this sim game. Domingo Tapia is up in the bullpen. We expect to see him go for a half an inning, and also the hard-throwing right-hander Robinson Layer coming up in just the next, 20 minutes or so. But Tapia would be first. He is throwing in the left field pen as we speak.
Everything to down so far has been low and away.
Line foul. Got out in front of that one, did Jeter.
There's a shot of Tapia warming up.
It's very rarely a boring inning when Domingo Tapia is on the mound. We get to see that coming up.
The question with Tapia has always been control. He's either blowing everyone away with his fastball or struggling to find the zone. So we'll see which Tapia we get today.
Out of play. Jeter Downs battling here against Covey.
I know we've talked about this on past broadcasts, but watching Jeter Downs pre-pitch and sort of his load is eerily similar to a Mookie Betts. I know we've talked about similar body builds and how they get power while they're a smaller guy, but even the bat wag right before the pitch is coming as his foot gets down, it's uncanny.
There you see him waggling that bat. Then he straightens it up right as the pitch is delivered. He's got a bit of a toe tap, too, as he swings. His brother has been in the Red Sox organization, a much older brother, Jerry. Mike was talking about it. Jerry was a member of the Portland Sea Dogs last year, and he said, "You got to see my younger brother, Jeter. He is so talented." And lo and behold, the Red Sox go, and they end up making a trade to get Jeter Downs. Tapia on his way in from the bullpen, so he's ready to go for the next half inning.
I don't think Jerry's going to have to tell anyone else around New England that they should be looking out for his younger brother Jeter anymore. When you get traded as part of a trade for a guy like Mookie Betts, pretty much instantly become a household name around here.
Yeah, the eyeballs on you are many, and the expectations are as well. Inside. Close pitch. Covey wanted it. Actually had a bit of a word there. Bruce Crabb defending his call.
This is quite the battle in Covey's last inning of work.
Long look for the sign there from Pareda, his catcher. And now here we go. Popped him up into right. Hoyo. Doesn't need the sunglasses at the moment. It's got him right on top of his cap. So that'll do it for the afternoon for Dylan Covey. Good stuff. Just one run allowed, and it came here in his fourth inning of work. Major league depth, that's what you need, especially in 2020, and this alternate training site has quite a bit of it on the pitching side. Dylan Covey, part of that. Now it's Domingo Tapia as we return live here to our coverage. Josh Maurer joined today. Our special guest from Paw Sox Productions is Tim Quidadamo. Big Domingo Tapia.
I think every time he pitched here at McCoy last year, the eyes would be glued on him, and then the second that ball was released from his hands, everyone's shooting up to the radar gun to see if he's hitting triple digits.
It happens very often for the man who is every bit of the 6'3", 263 pounds that he's listed at on the website.
Real heavy fastball.
Last season, in his first year in the Red Sox organization, he played the whole year with Pawtucket. 44 appearances, won 5 games. He saved 2. Unfortunately, his earned run average ended up being north of 5. When he pitched the other day, we spent some time talking about the fact that he surprisingly gets fewer than a strikeout per inning pitched. Just 52 strikeouts in 66 innings of work.
Yeah, and he walked 32, which has always been the biggest problem with Tapia, is walking that many guys in just 66 innings. Definitely something he needs to get down. He's almost walking one guy every 2 innings.
Mostly fastballs and changeups for Domingo Tapia. Layer starts to throw in the bullpen. Meanwhile, he's the final scheduled pitcher on the docket for this afternoon. And then these guys will get to enjoy a Sunday night in the Providence area. As best they can, anyway. They are mostly hotel bound. The area where these guys are being housed is actually very close to the Federal Hill spot in Providence, which has got some great, in some ways, nationally renowned Italian restaurants. I don't know if you spent any time at Fed Hill, TQ.
Not too much time. I have heard about Sage Kitchen is a new restaurant coming around the Federal Hill area in Providence, and I've heard great things about it so far. Obviously a tough time to start a restaurant. But they're working their way through regardless.
Well, I was going to say, and I'm going to have to check that out, by the way. The Federal Hill restaurants are on a street, for the most part, called Atwell's Avenue. And Atwell's, by order of the town these days, on the weekends, they close off the street to traffic, and they just have outdoor dining for those restaurants.
The whole street?
The whole street where the restaurants are, for about 3 or 4 blocks, is close to automobile traffic. So
that's amazing.
These guys could theoretically walk down there and have a nice little outdoor meal, socially distanced, you would assume.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time in Boston during these last couple of months, and they pretty much reserve, it looks like street parking, 2 or 3 street parking spaces just off to the side of the road for restaurants to be out there. And I always thought, that's not the most appealing place to sit down and have a meal with some car exhaust driving by you on Dodd Ave, on Dorchester Ave, or anything like that. But
they're going to put a runner at second base here for Tapia. How about this?
Looks like Playo heading out there.
Maybe this is the coaching staff's way of simulating an extra inning situation these days.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
The batter is Pareda. Tapia working with a runner at second. Nobody out. And that's a strike. I like this. So he strikes out Pareda, and the automatic runner has to stay put. Hey, if that's the rule, and if Domingo were up in the big leagues, maybe he'd be called upon to start a 10th inning.
Yeah.
Get used to the situation.
Why not? Something he's definitely used to as well. This rule has been in minor league baseball for a couple of years now, where any extra innings start with the runner on second base already to try to speed the game up a little bit, so we don't have those 20-inning games that we always used to see about once a year.
Big swing by Munoz.
And with a lot of other COVID-19 rule changes in Major League Baseball, one of them is the runner on second to start extra innings.
What's your thoughts on it? Do you like it?
I'm a little bit torn. I find myself somewhere between being a baseball traditionalist and sort of this new era of trying to speed the game up, these pace of play rules. I think I like it. I know a lot of people have a problem with, oh, well, it's hard to get a guy on second base, so why are we starting with a guy on second base and nobody out? That kind of puts you at a disadvantage. But, I mean, the other team gets to start with a guy at second base too, so it's just a matter of, can your bats move a guy over and bring him in with 2 or 3 outs to play with?
I had never thought that it had a chance to ever reach the major league level. Yep. I loved it for the minor leagues. I think it makes all the sense in the world to use that rule. Nice block there by Centeno. I was a little bit surprised. Last year we had Tony La Russa here, and he advocated for it being used in the major leagues, essentially making the argument that the result of 1 out of 162 games is not as important as potentially playing, as you say, a 20-inning game and ruining your pitching staff for a couple of days.
Exactly.
And so he advocated for this rule to be put into place even pre-pandemic. And when Tony La Russa talks, you got to listen.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting because obviously the scale of one game out of 162 if it's decided by an extra innings runner on second base. But it becomes a little more serious when it's one game out of 60 like we're seeing this year. But I think easily my favorite rule change with this shortened season has to be the National League DH. On opening night, we saw Giancarlo Stanton hit a ball 465 feet. And I think I said to my friends, somebody tell me they'd rather see Garrett Cole have that at bat. The man hit a ball 470 feet almost.
There are those that will miss watching pitchers hit. Munoz takes in the dirt. Battling here against Tapia, and he takes a walk. And that's going to be it for the automatic base runner. Since Arpuello trots off the field, and Munoz, he says, "Where you want me to go?" He walked.
He's trying to get third.
He's going to be the replacement at second. So theoretically now you'd have runners on first and second base, but we'll call it a ghost runner at first. One out, and the batter is going to be C.J. Chatham.
Chatham had a nice rip up the middle while our audio was out, so we weren't able to say anything about it, but swinging the bat well.
Swung through that fastball there from Domingo Tapia. I just would encourage people who were anti the automatic base runner rule being in the major leagues. I would encourage them to give it a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
I've loved watching those games. I think there's automatic intrigue from the second that a 10th inning begins. And we've seen it for a couple of years now in AAA and in the minors. I look forward to extra innings when, I'll be honest with you, there were nights that I used to not so much.
Yeah, and even going back to the last game we saw it, the last game of the season last year, we had the Iron Pigs rip a single to right, which scored that automatic runner from second to give them a lead. And then the first two Paw Sox hitters of the bottom of the 10th inning were outs. And then Cole Sturgeon hits a 2-run walk-off home run, and the Paw Sox didn't even get a runner on base to start that inning.
It's just intrigue from the beginning of the inning. Are you going to bunt with your first hitter? Are you going to pinch run if it's a slow-footed guy that takes second base? Strategy comes into play that you otherwise might not have.
Yeah, and it all depends on where you left off in the order, too. If you have maybe 7, 8, or 9 guys, you might be bunting, where if you're in the heart of the order, you're probably going to have those guys swing away. And especially with baseball now, a lot of those heart-of-the-order guys are the guys who strike out at a higher rate.
Puello fouled it off. So Puello was at second base to begin this inning, and now he has had to take a turn to bat. Chatham struck out, so we got 2 outs in the inning for Domingo Tapia. In the air, center field. Duran is on his horse. He will not get it. Cesar Puello has a double, and a run comes across. That was a good rip to the deepest part of the ballpark.
Yeah, and Puello earns his way onto second this time as opposed to just being given it at the beginning of the inning.
A run off of the hard-throwing Domingo Tapia. He has given up a walk, and he has given up a double. And Johnny Pereda coming back to the plate. Limited numbers of available batters continue here in this sim game this afternoon. Hope you're enjoying our broadcast coverage presented by Bank of America. We're in our final scheduled inning. There's one more half to be played after Domingo gets the final out here, and that'll be pitched by Robinson Layer. Tell you this much, if you're a hitter in these sim games, especially today, you're certainly getting your fair share of hacks, and good for your timing, good for your staying in the swing of things. You get see a lot of live pitches.
Yeah, and that's part of Billy McMillan's plan all along, was kind of easing the guys into sort of, eventually we'll probably get to around a 6 or 7 inning game, but with the arms we have allotted down here and the position players, not enough to make 2 full squads, but the guys are definitely getting their money's worth of live at-bats here.
Tapia needs 1 more strike to end this inning. Third to first on the infield here in this frame. Dahlbeck, Downs. And here's a ground ball to the second baseman. That Munoz, or Marco, I beg your pardon, who makes the play. Over to Akami. Hernandez has moved all over the infield today. Third to short, now to second base. So Tapia gives up 1 run. Talking with his backstop, Juan Centeno, having a conversation as he makes his way towards the dugout, and Robinson Layer comes in. One more time today as we watch this Red Sox sim game and these cool new graphics. Tim, let's get a word from our sponsors from Bank of America.
We are entering a new chapter in our lives. Our confidence is shaken, cracked. We didn't ask for it, but we are rising to meet it. And how far we've come isn't even close to how far we can go. There's a crack in everything for a reason. How else can the light get in? Tomorrow starts today.
Thanks to the Bank of America for helping us provide you the live coverage here from McCoy Stadium. Robinson Layer pitching on back-to-back days. He was very impressive yesterday in a half inning in the sim game that was played Saturday. Now Tapia was 6'3", 260. Layer is 6'2", so he's only an inch shorter than Domingo, the pitcher who just threw, but he is about 80 pounds lighter, just 185. So you can see the difference in the frame between the 2 pitchers who have appeared on the mound here in this half inning, or in this inning. 27-year-old out of El Seibo in the Dominican. First year in the Red Sox system, Tim.
Both Tapia and Layer have a live fastball, though, despite the weight difference.
Second year, I should say, with Boston. He was with Portland after being signed midseason a year ago. Robinson Layer. Final half inning scheduled today. We're back at it tomorrow. We anticipate back to the 4 o'clock start time for the sim game that they've been using in the middle of the weeks. A little bit earlier on the weekend action. Bobby Dahlbeck, first man, coming up against Layer. Bobby talked the other day with the media about how he has to, as best he can, try to keep his focus and get his work in, try to improve every single day and take advantage of these at-bats that he gets.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him get a hold of one, or at least drive a ball into the gap.
Centeno is on deck. He'll be next. And the automatic runner has been placed just as they did behind Domingo Tapia. They'll do it behind Layer here in his half inning.
Yeah, it looks like with Covey and Houck, at least today, they're looking at them more as sort of starting guys who might be able to open up a game, chew up a few innings at least, maybe 4 or 5. But with Layer and Tapia, they're kind of sticking with them as strictly relievers, starting with the runner on second base.
Simulating what would be a major league extra inning situation these days.
This is just low with the fastball.
This would have been a good inning to have the radar gun active up here.
Oh, yeah. With Tapia and Layer, we got to get that thing going. I don't want to add another thing to both my plate and Joe Jacobs.
I was going to say, you might be able to make it happen, sir.
I think I know a guy.
Wild one from Layer, and so the automatic runner is to third. That's Marco Hernandez. Yairo Munoz trying to prevent him from getting to third. I'm not sure if you saw that from your high home shot. Yairo was pushing Marco back towards second base. He says, get out of here. Now the infield's going to come in. So Billy McMillan managing this inning as if it were a Major League extra inning, trying to prevent that winning run from scoring. Strike called. When you look at a guy like Lair at 185 pounds, it almost defies logic that you can still sling the baseball at 100 miles an hour. It makes more sense when you see a guy like Tapia do it.
Right, you would think it would have a lot of strain on a guy who doesn't have as much weight on him. Bobby Dahlbeck off the top of the wall in left center, and that's exactly what we were looking for, Josh.
Runner coming in from third, the automatic runner Hernandez. Dahlbeck plays wall ball. RBI double here in his final at bat of the day, likely.
And that's where we'd like to see Bobby Dahlbeck living. Dropping the barrel on the ball, shooting it gap to gap, left center to right center, and he hit it just off the top of the wall. Missed a home run by probably about 1.5 feet.
Yeah, and it carried very well. I didn't think off the bat that he had gotten that as well as he did.
No, I thought it was going to find some grass and maybe roll to the wall, but that almost made it to the berm.
Well, each team has been able to get its automatic runner in, or each batting group, I should say, has scored the automatic base runner here in this inning.
Yep, and Dahlbeck able to trade places without an out here.
So theoretically, the game is now tied if you were keeping score. So you wonder if this would be a walk-off situation. I doubt it. Lair has to get his work in regardless as Centeno swings through the pitch. One of the things these guys can do tonight, wherever they end up finding food, is they can get in front of a television to watch their big league counterparts against the Yankees at 7 o'clock. It's nice to have sports back on TV, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. Being able to crack a cold one and just sit down on the couch for a couple of hours has been a welcomed return.
Really, this weekend, just being able to flip through, not just have one option to watch sports, but have multiple options. You go between the NBA and the NHL now is back.
Yeah, and usually around this time, we only have baseball and maybe some NFL training camps starting up, but we don't get a lot of coverage of that other than the local news stations. But right now we have meaningful hockey, meaningful basketball, and obviously meaningful baseball.
Celtics are back in action this afternoon.
Are you a big hockey guy?
You know what? I'm not.
Not?
I lost track of the sport. When I was younger, I was a big Philadelphia Flyers fan.
Really?
Yeah, it just kind of went away for me.
Have you been keeping track with how they're sort of restarting this Stanley Cup playoff?
I'm a little bit, you know what, only to a certain extent, because one of the bubble sites is already in the playoffs.
Yep.
And the other one is still playing teams in to get into the postseason picture.
The way it's working is the top 4 teams in each conference are playing pool play to figure out who's actually going to be the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed. And then the other, teams 5 through 12, so the teams that had a chance of making the playoff, are sort of going through their own bracket to figure out who's going to finish off the remaining seeds. So it's almost like...
So where do the Bruins fall in all of this?
Right now the Bruins are the 1 seed in that pool play, but they still have to play. I think it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think the Philadelphia Flyers are actually in it, so it would be a good time to get involved again for you, Josh, if you want to stay on that Philly team.
I'm in. I think that the concept there is very unique and intriguing. So the Bruins theoretically could fall in that pool. They could be as low as the 4 seed?
Yep, they could be as low as the 4 seed.
Centeno strikes out. Good pitch by Lair. Cutting down and into the left-handed hitter. 1 out here in his inning. Robinson, and now he'll deal with Andrioli. Celtics today are in action, as I mentioned. They'll be in a national game on ABC in just about an hour. They play Portland.
And Josh, in a half hour, the Bruins are hosting the Philadelphia Flyers.
All right. You're saying I got to find a TV.
Yeah, you might have some homework for immediately after the game.
How about that for a Boston sports day then? But the Red Sox at 7 tonight in the Bronx.
Not bad.
Glad you started your day with us here. Red Sox Taxi Squad action as Andreoli takes one outside, and there are 2 more outs needed to finish this day's simulated game. There are people who are working tirelessly throughout this ballpark to make this happen, starting with Matt McKinnon, who's in charge of the grounds. Matt's done a fantastic job for years and years here where the Pawtucket Red Sox team is playing. So no surprise that he's doing the similar job that the taxi squad has needed with the field. But it still deserves a tip of the cap to Matt and the helpers that make this field look as good as it does day in and day out.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever found a blade of dead grass on this field since I've started working here. Matt McKinnon does such an incredible job. He's out here early today pressing the grass to give some fresh designs in the outfield.
We gave Matt and the outfield grass a little bit of a break this weekend with the dining on the diamond. Nice, almost a pick that time out of the dirt, but it bounces through. A wild pitch is the second of the half inning here by Layer. Pareda was the catcher trying to get it with his backhand.
And the theoretical winning run in Dahlbeck moves up to third base.
And the infield will come in. Andreoli in the box. I always think it must be very inviting for a hitter to look and see that infield squeezed as tightly as it is.
Yep, just got to throw a barrel on it, hit it hard anywhere, and chances are good you're driving in that run.
Layer pitching for the punch out or the pop-up. So kudos to Matt McKinnon and the grounds crew. Everybody in the operations side of things, Jen Beauclair and Jeff Castor, have helped keep things afloat. And you guys, TQ and Joe Jacobs, providing everything needed here from the press box where we reside for these broadcasts. Joe Bradley.
Guys like Alex Richardson helping out a lot.
All the, as you explained to us earlier, the Tier 3 employees from the Pawtucket Red Sox front office having to work very closely with the taxi squad operation, while the non-tiered employees, unfortunately, kind of just work from home.
Yeah. We're also lucky with the layout of McCoy Stadium, having the players' entrance sort of off to the side and the offices connected with the stairway on the tower where we can walk in, walk right up to the press box, and we don't see anybody on the way in.
Well, he got the strikeout that he was looking for there. Layer puts away Andreoli. So 2 outs. And 2 outs is enough. That'll do it. Especially pitching back-to-back days. A little bit of a pitch count, I'm sure, on Robinson Layer's right arm. And so the simulation action here on a Sunday afternoon has come to its end. Both Layer and Tapia gave up a run in this inning. But before that, we saw some good work from Dylan Covey. I thought he was one of the standouts today.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked really sharp. And we mentioned earlier the only run coming across as a result of an error.
Tanner Houck pitched 3 innings and seemed to, at least to my eyes, maybe ran out of gas a little bit towards the end after a strong start to his work on the mound this afternoon. They tried to build up Tanner a little bit.
Yeah, I think right now Tanner's kind of caught in between being that reliever, getting a couple of innings, and kind of moving into more of a starter's role, which he pitched in today, going 3 innings. Looked good in the first, and then sort of started breaking down a little bit, losing a little bit more control, yanking that slider. He hit Marco Hernandez, pulling it a little bit too much to the lefty, and he walked Josh Ockamy on 5 pitches. But the stuff still had a lot of break, looked real good.
And finally, TQ, the 1 home run we saw today was not a cheap one. It came from Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran hit Tanner Houck's pitch out almost to the back of the bleacher seats in right center field, which is no easy feat.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
He's looked incredible, continuing a strong spring training that he had in early March. Still staying hot, hitting with a lot of power, and it was great to see Bobby Dahlbeck drive a ball into that left center gap off the wall to end the day.
Tim, fun to be with you. We'll see you here throughout the remainder of this Taxi Squad action. We'll, if not hear you, we'll be seeing you. Help us get on the air. Mike and Jim will be back with me tomorrow. We anticipate at 4 o'clock. So we hope that you'll be able to tune in at the end of your Monday afternoon. Thank you, Tim. Fun being with you.
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks, Josh.
For everybody here in the press box, Josh Maurer saying so long for now. Sunday afternoon action in the books with this Red Sox alternate training site, completing 4.5 innings of a sim game. We hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you tomorrow.